All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Money Made Simple. My name is Nick Lockwood. I'm one of the financial planners on the team here at Oakwood. I'm joined, as always, by my father, Mike. So, Dad, how's your day going so far?
It's a great start. We got Kevin with us, so that's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, we've got a new guest for everybody today. So, Kevin Campbell, I'll get him introduced just in a second here. What we're looking to cover today is all things stock. So maybe not all things, but we want to discuss equity and stock and things that we think our listeners ought to know or be considering. Right now, we're a few days before the highly anticipated SpaceX IPO. So by the time this comes out, that IPO will have already happened, but it has a lot of buzz. It's all over the news. I've never had so many people call in asking to purchase a stock. So we thought it might be an interesting time to discuss stock and concentrated positions and when do we sell our stocks? How should we think about doing that in a tax sensitive way? So that's the plan for today, but let's get Kevin introduced. Kevin, you're a financial planner on the team here. You've been with us for what, 8 or 9 years, I think.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kevin's officially hit the big 10.
Double
He's
digits.
a native of Costa Mesa. He's got his certified financial planner designation, which he got a couple years ago, probably, Kevin. But why don't you say a couple things just to get yourself introduced?
Yeah. So my name is Kevin Campbell. I've been on the team for 10 years. Mike and I have had that relationship for all 10 years, which has been fun and a great mentor in the industry. I'm married. I have a baby boy right now and a baby girl on the way. And I also have a really fun golden doodle that I bring in the office that everyone knows. It's pretty fun to have her in the office too.
Yeah, and a lot of people probably don't know this, but Kevin and I, we had our first children within 3 months of each other. No, 3 weeks rather, and then we're having our second kids within another few weeks
A couple
of
weeks.
one another. Yeah, Kevin had the boy first, and now he's having a girl. I had a girl, now we're having a boy, so the little flip-flop. But Dad, why don't you've worked with Kevin now for 10 years, as Kevin said.
Kevin, I'm very proud of. Kevin started out at Cal State Fullerton with us. He was a paraplanner / intern, just a ball of energy, and kind of a boost to our team in that sense. And so he's grown quite a bit since he began. Most everybody that starts with me, we started in the healthcare industry, and Kevin would go to a hospital, and he's grown out of that. And what I love about Kevin is he's found his own niche, and that's why he's here with us today. But Kevin has been a big proponent of education for our team, and he mentors. He continues to mentor. And Kevin and Nick, it's really funny because they're kind of on the same track. They're kind of on the same family track, and it's kind of fun to watch these two when they bring their kids in. And Kevin, and the last thing I'll say about Kevin does bring his dog into their office. And if anybody's been to our office, you've probably met Pepper, because she will greet everybody. So Kevin is our first, Kevin is our first team member to be on our podcast. So that's exciting too.
Yeah,
and we'll have a few more. So
I'm looking forward to the podcast today. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So like I said, we want to discuss stock, and specifically, there's just so much hype right now about the stock market. We're at all-time highs. There's all these interesting companies that are going to be going public. We've seen big names like Apple and Google and NVIDIA through the years, but what do we make of that? That's kind of the point of today's conversation. So Dad, why don't you, just to get us started, can you explain what a stock is? Why don't we start there?
Yeah, I've been doing this 38 years, and I used to sit in the hospital cafeteria trying to explain to the layperson the difference between a stock and a bond. And the example I always use is I started, my senior year in high school and freshman year in college. I worked at Baskin Robbins, an ice cream parlor that many people know. And so I always use the ice cream story. And let's say, for instance, I wanted to open my own ice cream parlor, and I had $50,000, and I'm being silly. I'm saying it's only going to cost $100,000 to open an ice cream store, and I know that's not true. But I'm going to open an ice cream parlor for $50,000, and I need another $50,000 to get it started. So I go to Kevin and I say, "Hey, Kevin, listen, I want to borrow $50,000." And for that $50,000, I'm going to pay you 4% interest on that $50,000. And at the end of 10 years, I'm going to give you that $50,000 back. But in the meantime, you've made 4% interest. And Kevin, Kevin's a little old guy, retired. He's 70 years old. He's living off his fixed income. And he says, well, shoot, I can get a CD at 2.5. Mike's going to give me 4. I'll go ahead and take that. And so he gives me my $50,000. I open my ice cream parlor and I'm doing very, very well. What happens to Kevin's investment? What does he get? Well, he gets his 4%, 4% paid. And it's like clockwork. I'm paying his 4%. And at the end of the 10 years, I give him his $50,000 back. And he's like, well, that's great. But he says, well, what if I want to be an owner, Mike? What if I want to be a partner with you at 50-50? I'll put my 50,000 in, you put your 50,000 in. The other example, that's a bond, right? That's where you're loaning somebody money. When you buy a bond, you're basically loaning somebody money with the promise of interest coming back. But now Kevin says, no, I want a piece of the action. So Kevin gives me $50,000 and we are partners. We go in together and he's right side by side scooping ice cream with me, and we're making money hand over fist because we opened it on Moody Boulevard in Visalia, the cruise strip. And Kevin's making a lot of money. And how much money does Kevin make? Well, he makes exactly what I make, right? He makes 50% of whatever I make because he's a 50% owner. But what happens if Kevin and me were scooping too big of ice creams, scoops there, and we're giving away money and we end up losing and we go out of business? What happens to Kevin's $50,000?
It's gone.
It's gone. He lost it, right? Guys, that's a stock. The stock, you have tremendous opportunity for growth, but you also have tremendous risk that it could drop. And in our situation, diminish, be gone. Hence Enron, right? Back in the day when Enron stock would just all of a sudden disappeared. The bond, again, the bond is the debt. What happens if I go out of business and Kevin loaned me $50,000? Well, Kevin knocks on my door and says, hey, I need my $50,000 back. Sell the ice cream that you got left, sell the freezer, sell everything in here, give me my $50,000 back. So he has some guarantees behind that bond. And that's why we always say bonds are boring, but bonds are necessary. Stock is where the excitement is. And that's why everybody is always wanting to buy stock. But we always forget there's a downside to stock. Again, the thing you have to remember, greed and fear fuel the stock market. To me, right now, there's a heck of a lot of greed out there. There's a heck of a lot of greed, and people aren't willing to look past the fact that there is some risk involved. And that's what we want to talk about today. Is one, what happens if the market does go up and you've got this stock, you've made the right call, now what? What happens if you made the call and the stock goes down?
Yeah.
What do you do? Okay.
So we talked about some of the big names, right? NVIDIA, Apple, Google, Meta, right? These big companies that have had tons and tons of growth. For investors that have had those pieces of those companies or stock in those companies in their investment accounts, if they've held it for a long period of time, chances are they've had a lot of growth. Now, we often forget that there were points in time where the market came down, right? Or those stocks came down in value. And it didn't feel good in those moments when that stock did come down. But if we zoom out over a long period of time, right, we probably had pretty good growth in there. So let's just real quick talk about, because everyone's asking, SpaceX, right? Anthropic, OpenAI. These are 3 big names. I mean, Anduril is probably somewhere around the corner, right? 4 big names that people are highly anticipating. So just to get it out of the way, Kevin, maybe we'll start with you. How would you think about investing in companies like those where they're really exciting companies, but at this point it feels like it's hype driving potential stock price more so than earnings?
Yeah, that's a good question, because a lot of clients are going to see what's going on in the news. They're going to be, on their social media, and there's going to be a lot of people talking about the hype around these different positions. What you have to understand is, what are you buying, right? I think Warren Buffett always really preaches, know what you're buying, or buy something that you actually believe in. So the nice thing is like people love space. It's exciting. AI is on the boom, so you're going to see a lot of attraction to that. But you have to know what you're buying at the end of the day. You don't buy it by the hype. You buy it because you know that the company is going to have either retention with its earnings or it's going to have additional growth. So it's really important that you know what you buy and then you don't overload on that as well. And that's kind of what I think of the topic is about today is it's not only the stock, but it's that over concentration in the stock. You don't want to over position yourself in one single company or one single asset class and overexpose your wealth. Because just as Mike gave the example, if there is that day that the stock doesn't do well or even goes bankrupt, that could be your liquid net worth diminishing and potentially being a big problem with you being able to achieve your goals or retirement and things like that. So I like the idea of the IPOs. I like that you can buy stocks. It's definitely a place where you're going to see a good amount of wealth grow. But I think at the end of the day, you need to make sure it fits with you and your financial situation. And we're not buying it because of the hype or somebody else told us to buy it. We're buying it because we either believe in it or we've done the research or we have somebody that's doing the research for us to make sure that this is a good situation for us.
SpaceX just came out with their S1, right? Part of their filing documents to go public. They published that I think their 2025 revenue was 18.6 maybe ish billion, right? They're getting valued at, depending on who you talk to, 1.5 trillion, maybe up
Right.
to 2 trillion. So they have this massive valuation. So I think in a very young, immature stock, right when that first goes public, it's really just going to be hype and speculation that's fueling the stock price. It's going to take some time for the market to figure out what this company is actually worth. Now, if we look over a 50-year time horizon, right, I personally believe we will be going to space. I think that's going to be a massive sector of the economy at some point, which it's hard to believe because can't
Right.
even wrap our heads around that. But I just think that's the way that we're progressing. So if we're looking over a long period of time, I have confidence in SpaceX stock personally, but in the short term, it's anyone's guess as to what's going to happen there.
I think that's a good point. I mean, when you buy these stocks, hopefully you're not buying it for a day, a week, a month. You're buying because you're looking at this as a longer time horizon, right? One of the things that we talk to our clients about and that we should be educated on is when it comes to investments, you're going to look at two things, right? Your tolerance for risk and your time horizon. So your tolerance for risk is really going to say, when do you get queasy, right? It's like a roller coaster. Everyone likes to go way up, but on the way down, when are you going to feel uncomfortable? And so tolerance is going to be a big piece of, can you handle that volatility that's going to come with the ride with SpaceX? Because we know maybe it's going to have its up and down, and we expect it to have more ups than downs. But it's going to take a while, and there's going to be a wild ride that comes with it. And then time horizon is going to be one of your bigger ones. If you don't know your tolerance for risk, which a lot of people don't know because unless you've gone through it, you don't really understand where you're going to feel queasy when it goes on the downs. And so the time horizon piece is a big play here because if you give yourself enough time, there's a lot of statistics that support that time is going to be a great way to find the mean of that stock or that return. And so if you can give anything enough time, like a 2008 crash or a 2000 crash, time is the essence here. And if you give yourself enough time, you can get through it. The problem with stocks though is that stock, if it goes down too far, maybe you don't, it's time is not part of the issue here, right? Maybe this company is going to be hurt because of that drawdown. So again, I think it's really important to understand what you're buying here because it could be a great long-term investment. You just got to make sure that you're ready for that ride.
Yeah, it's setting the right expectations, I think, for what you're going to be purchasing. Dad, maybe with SpaceX, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think any of us are saying no to buying IPOs and stocks like that. I think what we're doing is saying do a little bit of homework, have a plan, and probably do it in moderation. Don't bet the house on SpaceX.
Right.
I personally I have, and I tell our clients to do that. My clients do this as well. I have my serious money and I have my play money. And my play money is where I buy the SpaceX and the IPOs and all this fun stuff. Because if in that scenario, if they don't do well, it's not affecting my tomorrow, right? And again, I believe in SpaceX. I think it's going to be fine. but I think folks are in for a rockier ride than they're anticipating. And that's true with any IPO that comes
Mhm.
out. It's
Yeah,
not just you're buying it and you're going up, you know. So
I was thinking back Meta or Facebook back then when they went public, there was a ton of hype around that company and many investors got in early and they were excited about it. And then Meta, I think, had it was maybe 48% was the drawdown over the course of that first year that they went public. So if you held Meta until now, you're okay. But if you had really high expectations for that first 12 months that you were going to be holding those Meta
and,
shares,
yeah.
right? You're in for a bit
And
of a
Nick,
world of
you can
hurt.
go back to any IPO and
Sure.
that's the story.
Right.
That's the story because the hype outplays the actual performance of the account. I mean, like you said, you've got so many people calling wanting to buy SpaceX, and again, I really believe I think everybody just expects it to do nothing but go up, but it's going to go up, and then within a month it'll drop.
Right.
And what are you going to do? Right?
Right.
You going to hold on because you
Yeah,
believe in
and
the
at the current
company?
moment, like I said, it's a company that does 18 billion in revenue per year. Yeah, there's tons of high hope for this company in the long run, but in the short term, that is what we're buying. We're buying a
Yeah.
huge valuation on a company doing 18 billion per year. So the whole conversation here is just have the right expectations, whether that's SpaceX, Anthropic, OpenAI, Anduril, any of these big companies that are going to be going public. The way that I've explained it to people is in my head, any SpaceX shares that I'm buying right now are for my 20-month-old daughter, right? Not actually, but that's the time horizon that I'm putting on these. So I'll put, a little bit of money in and buy some shares and I'm just going to let them sit for a long, long time and hope they go up. And if they don't, then, I didn't put everything into SpaceX. We keep saying SpaceX, but really it's any of these companies. So that's the way
Right.
that I've thought about how I'm going to invest.
I like Mike's idea of the fun account. I have a lot of clients that do that, and it's fun for them too, and it's fun for us too to see them. I mean, like they're having years that they're making 20-40% returns, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at this, it's so crazy. And then there's times that they're losing the house on that, right? Not one
But
stock, and you're like, man, I didn't make it. It didn't work
But
out.
Kevin, to that point, we have to caution some of our clients because they'll come in and they'll have their fund account and it's done very, very well, and they're saying, "Why haven't you done as well in the account that you have?" And you're like, "You're comparing an apple and an orange.
Yeah.
It's you can't do that. And just because you're doing well today doesn't mean we're going to throw everything over in your account because as soon as we do that, it's going to drop. And then you're going to like, why'd you let me do that?
Yeah.
So we have that's why we're the same voice in all of this, I think. So
Yeah, a practical idea that I thought of that I've shared with people is if you have interest in buying any of these big IPOs, right, that go public, maybe in your head come up with a dollar amount that you're comfortable with. So a dollar amount that you're comfortable seeing have really wild swings up and down, and break that investment over the course of 12 months. So dollar
Mhm.
cost averaging, right? If you're going to put um, $10,000 into pick your company, right? Maybe let's say $12,000, just to make it easy math. Do $1,000 each month. We don't care
Yeah.
what the price is, but it's a way for us to kind of
well,
soften the blow and make
that's the
sure.
same way to do it, Nick. But most people are excited and they want in. They want all in.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
again,
I'm just
that's
saying for those who are disciplined, that they're maybe more disciplined. They're able to be a little bit patient. That could be a good way to do it, to where you're mitigating some of that timing risk of getting in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's pivot now to, let's say we have stock and it has grown a ton through the years. When do we sell? That's a big question, right? Because part of that is emotional. We've watched this stock grow and we've loved seeing it in our brokerage account. But at some point, we also need cash to spend and to go pay for groceries and mortgages and get our kids to go to college and things like that. So how should we think about selling stock after it's gotten some appreciation? Is there ever a right time?
Mike, you want to go first? You want me to go
No,
first?
Kevin, go ahead, buddy.
So that's a loaded question, Nick, always, and it's always, it depends always. But I think the way that I like to look at it is, a lot of clients come to us with that question. And in their minds, they think, okay, I work for this company and I got all this compensation through equity, like Tesla or Google or Micron. And now the stock has done so well, right? And it's grown. And now it's made a position of like 80% of a client's liquid net worth or 50% of a client's liquid net worth. And it's like, wow, I can probably retire now. If the stock gets to this price, I can retire and I'll sell it. And that's the hard part is you probably don't want to have that mindset. You want to think about the stock as how is it going to close that gap of allowing you to accomplish your goal? Whether you're younger and you're getting equity compensation and you're trying to buy your first home, or you're older and you're getting to retirement and you're saying, hey, if my nest egg gets to this big, I can probably retire and have a safe, consistent income stream come from this investment. The thing that you have to approach this is in a couple different phases. One is when you have a single stock exposure, like we've talked about, you have single stock exposure risk with that single company. So it can go away pretty quickly. But two, you have to focus is on the taxes. Because when you hold these investments, the nice thing is if you've held a stock in a non-retirement account and you've held it over 1 year, you get this special tax treatment called capital gains tax treatment, which is a lot cheaper than your ordinary income tax treatment. So it's really important here to understand how can we leverage this unique opportunity when it comes to taxes to help us take some of these winnings off the table. And a lot of the times clients think, okay, sell it when it gets to $1,000 a share and I'll have plenty. But then the tax ramifications by selling everything in 1 year gets blown out of proportion. And especially based off of the state that you live in, it could even get worse. So what the best approach to do is probably look at this and say, well, what's my gap? And how can I efficiently take money from this stock and put it on my side of the table and diversify it, whether it's in bonds or multiple different companies? Now I'm exposing myself to less risk when it just comes to that one company. And I'm able to take these winnings and actually apply it to my goal or my financial situation. So it's a little bit different. I know every case by case is going to be a little bit different, but the time to sell is not going to be when the stock hits a certain price. It's when you're going to be able to accomplish your goal or make meaningful impacts towards accomplishing it, right? Progress, not perfection.
So what I'm hearing you say, Kevin, is have a disciplined plan. And again, that plan sometimes rolls around tax brackets that you're in, that you might have. We had a client come in, which is very interesting. She's retired, and she's actually a recent widow, but she, from her retirement account, she was a little bit more conservative. On a scale of 1 to 10, she was probably about a 3 or 4 on her retirement accounts. And then she had a brokerage account that basically held 10 or 12 stocks, primarily AI stocks. NVIDIA was in there, Google was in there, Facebook. And between her 10 stocks, she had capital gains of about, it was a $1.3 million account, but she had capital gains of about 400,000 or 500,000. And she felt like she was stuck now because she had done so well with these stocks, and now she's trying to figure out a way to have a little bit extra money because she still has wants and needs and dreams and goals with her life still. So that's we see those kinds of situations quite often, and we have to kind of, again, Kevin, to your point, we have to come up with a plan on how to do that. And trying to do it on your own, and all of a sudden you've got IRMA challenge, you've got challenges with IRMA and your income taxes. It becomes a mess. So
Yeah.
I think one thing I just wanted to add real quick is the question is when do I sell it? What's the ramifications from a tax perspective? Like, so how much do I owe IRS? When do I pay it? How do I do it? But then I think another huge one is now what? Now I've got this cash. I really only knew this one company or maybe my retirement plan. What do we do next? And I think that's where the planning comes in. Sorry, Nick, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that's okay. One thing I was going to add there is if going back to that play account idea, right? If we have an appropriately sized play account, meaning it's not the vast majority of our net worth, if you get a huge run up in a couple of those names, you probably won't be as tied, maybe, I don't know the right word exactly, right? As emotionally connected to that stock, right? If you have $5,000 of some company that 10x is, right? you know that that's always been your play account. And so that means we don't know what that stock's going to get to, but you might be more able to sell that. You can get yourself to sell it more and kind of rebalance it and be more disciplined, as opposed to if you put all your net worth into a couple names and you get a big run up there, you're locked into those stocks because you're like, look what just happened, right? It's kind of the recency bias. So I think it all comes back to just being disciplined, having the plan, know what the stock is supposed to fund, and have a plan to make sure that you should sell it and can sell it at the right time to be able to fund those goals, and then have the right expectations with the right holdings and the right accounts, and don't get yourself into a position where you're, I don't know, bringing on more issues to yourself as far as timing of when to sell the stock. Um,
Kevin, so one of the ways that you can run up stock, right, is if you work for an awesome company and they give you stock.
Right.
So can you kind of share some of the challenges around that type of problem?
Yeah.
I don't know if
So
it's a problem, it's an opportunity, I guess, right?
I'd say it's huge opportunity. And so what we call this is called equity compensation. So a lot of our clients, or in particular, a niche that I follow is clients that work at, whether it's a large corporation like a Meta, a Google, or a Micron, or they work for a private institution and they're getting private shares. So one of the great ways of these employees can get compensated is through stock. And so there's really a couple different forms of it. And I won't go into deep on each one because that would take too long. But really, a lot of clients I see will get what's called an RSU, which is a restricted stock unit. You'll see an ISO, incentive stock option, an NQSO, a non-qualified stock option. And another one that's really great is called an ESPP. It's an employer's stock purchase plan. And so a lot of the times you'll see a lot of RSUs and ESPPs with those big corporations that the Mag sevens. And then a lot of the private institutions, they'll actually issue a lot more around the incentive stock options, non-qualified stock options. And I truly believe it's incredible way, an opportunity, to point out with Mike's words, is to really receive compensation from these companies. Because now not only are you receiving a paycheck from the institution that you work for, but now you're actually getting an opportunity to grow with the company that you're working so hard to help it prosper as well. And so, a lot of clients that, have worked at, like Micron, for example, when that stock is just, at 10x a couple times now, it's created a great opportunity for these people to say, wow, not only did I work for this company and they helped me build my wealth and save for retirement, now I also have a nest egg that comes along with it. And so these opportunities are great, but I think it pulls in a couple things. One is what that question, when do I sell? How do I treat this? But then the two is there's an emotional tie to this investment as well, because now you've worked for this company. It really has grown your wealth. And so you feel almost in debt to the company, and you feel like, hey, this thing's going to keep going. This is going to keep going. And it may not. But there's a second layer of financial planning that you have to do with your clients to help them understand the emotional ties that come along with that stock. So, a lot of the times, again, it's when it comes to like a client that works for a larger corporation and they're receiving a restricted stock unit, they'll get that stock option, and then when they vest, that's when they actually get ownership of it. And that's when they have to pay taxes. And then it's up to them at that point to choose if they want to keep it or sell it. The one thing that I always want to make sure I point out, and this is kind of like hopefully clients can consider this with their own financial situation where they work, is the ESPP, the Employer Stock Purchase Plan. Huge opportunity for people to really build their wealth, because most likely the Employer Stock Purchase Plan offers some type of discount, maybe a 10 or 15% discount on those shares. And that's a great, cheap way for clients to acquire additional shares of that company. But the hard thing is now you're just keep building your concentration towards this one company that's not only giving you a paycheck, but your healthcare. And it's now your liquid net worth is going to get tied to. So now you're really depending so much on that one company, not only to put food on your table, but also, help you accomplish some of your goals and objectives. So it's definitely a financial planning opportunity. It's just it's one that you have to digest and plan around.
Kevin, I think you hit on something that I think is often overlooked and not thought about with stocks is they're very emotional. And from the standpoint, like you said, if you're working at the company, and you've acquired these stocks, it's emotional because that's your bread and butter. If you bought a stock and it's grown and you feel tied to that, I have a client that dad passed away, and they left the three kids probably 1.5 million in Apple stock that he acquired for $50,000 way back when. So all three of the kids, that's a little emotional for them to sell dad's stock each time their RMDs come around, right? So stock can be emotional, and that's the thing that we kind of overlook all the time. So it's a big factor when you're trying to help people understand this. And Kevin, you've done you've had experience with I'm gonna just throw some names out, Micron, with what they've got over there. You've had some experience helping people with at Google, I think you, and then maybe even
Yeah.
Meta. I know we've got somebody at Meta too. So
Apple, Androl, Cyton, some private companies.
so you've seen all kinds of different arrangements around all of that. Is there a common theme you're seeing with these folks when you talk to them?
Kevin, or maybe said another way, let's say I am an employee who works at one of these companies, and I come to you and I say, hey, Kevin, I've got these stock options. I don't know which of the alphabet soup of acronyms I have, but I know I have stock somewhere. What I think is, if this stock can get to $1,000 per share, I'll sell it all, and then I'm good. I'll have enough cash. I've done the calculation that I'll have enough cash then to fund the rest of my life. Because that's probably a common thought process for people that work at some of these companies. So what would you respond to, or how would you respond to that?
So I think the way that I would respond to, Nick, if you were that client that works at Micron, for example, well, one, the nice thing is you work with the company, so you actually have a little bit better of an inside scoop on what's going on, right? Whether you're going through, industry trainings and things like that, they'll kind of talk to you about what's going on. So you'll have a little bit better of an inside scoop on how that stock might be performing when it from the inside of the house. But we would look at it from what's the price to earnings ratio? Is it how much of it trading at times multiple? And then I'd say, okay, Nick, what are you trying to really accomplish here? Is this money for a new house, a new car? Is it for retirement? Is it to help fund your kids to go to college? Because now comes that piece that I mentioned earlier, where it's time horizon and risk tolerance. And so the planning will really help me help educate you on the timing of when should we start liquidating some of these pieces, and when should we start taking some of this risk off the table, because you might not be able to handle the volatility of all this AI media that's going on, and it's pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling. And so that would help me a lot understand, okay, based off of Nick and his goals, objectives, what he's trying to accomplish and his family dynamics, I know that he needs this money, not when the stock gets to $1,000 a share, but when he reaches a certain age, or when Charlotte gets to a certain age. And so I like to plan more based off of that scenario, because there's enough research that I can do from different institutions on Morningstar or whatnot, and to understand, is the stock overpriced, right? Are we in this another round of a bubble, right? Like we had in 2000. Because that's going to help us really figure out how urgent we have to jump on this. But at the same time, the planning is going to be your key. Not the insider scoop, not the social media pages that are pumping up the stock, not the IPO that comes out. It's mainly about your financial situation, how you are going to be able to accomplish that goal within the time horizon, and the way that you're going to be able to really stomach that goal, because that's important to you, and we need to focus what's on the most important, which is you and your family.
Yeah, and what I was going to add to that too is there's a tax component to that too, right? So if our plan is my stock gets to $1,000 per share, I can sell it all then, right? We probably just added an extra tax bill to our tax
Right.
return at the end of the year by doing all of that rate at once. And so that's a big consideration to make too. So like you were saying, depending on the scenario, in cases, oftentimes it'll make sense to kind of piece out different sales at different times, and you don't do that unless you have a plan in place and a direction that that you're heading.
That's a bit of reverse dollar cost averaging, right? Where
Right.
you're
Yeah.
unloading it at a certain
Yeah.
level.
So I mean, the one thing you have to think about, like if you're a married couple and you guys are making some decent income, you make $250,000, 250 grand. Anytime you sell a stock and you've held it over a year, you either are playing in the ballpark of a 15% capital gains tax or 20% capital gains tax. But now, because your income is over this threshold of what's called net investment income tax, well, now you're going to get assessed an additional 3.8%. And then if you live in California, now you might have another 8%. So the taxes are going to start to stack. And so there's different opportunities at different times of your life that there's going to make sense to kind of take some of those winnings off the table. Because again, it's not an all or nothing. It's not wait till the stock gets there. It's what's meaningful to your financial situation. Can we shave off a 10% haircut on Micron that's gone up by 500% in the last 2 years? Probably, right? We can take some of those winnings off the table, because then the way I think about it, right, is if you ever look at your statement, it says unrealized, right? Unrealized, because you haven't realized the gains. It's not real yet. It's good money. It's there. But until you realize the gains, that's when you actually take those winnings and you put them on your side of the table. But when you realize them, that creates a tax. I'd say it's not a burden. It's you made money, so we're just paying some taxes on it. But it's how do we handle that? And there's so many different ways to lower that tax bill. There are tons, right? There's tax loss harvesting that you can do. There's different investments that can help lower your taxable income. So the thing is it's not one of those things that you just kind of take it on the chin and say, well, I made good money. I might as well just pay the tax. It's what's the best way to handle this? Are there other ways for us to plan around you harvesting these large chunks of gains to actually put back into your liquid net worth to help you diversify and accomplish a lot of your income goals?
Yeah. Yeah. I think my takeaway here is like you said, you've got ISOs, RSUs, ESPPs, right? All these different options that we have. The big takeaway is you just need to be conscientious of the different tax implications there, when to sell things. Another thing that we didn't even mention is if you're a director level employee or above, right, you might not even be able to sell your stock right when you want to, because your company might have trading restrictions in place, right? That way it kind of helps to clear up the company from potential, insider knowledge trading and things like that. So it makes a ton of sense, but just, that might be something worth knowing and asking so that you can incorporate that into your plan too.
One that I think of too, like, let's just say you work at SpaceX, right? Well, you worked for a private company. You most likely got incentive stock options where they granted you, some shares at a certain price. And now the spread has gotten so much bigger. And if it goes IPO, and they are going to go for, trillions of dollars, this spread has now gotten ginormous, right? And so there's a lot of different strategies on pre-IPO, post-IPO, and actually how to extract some of this wealth, because there's a lot of tax favorable techniques using incentive stock options, but it's a lot around timing, right? We're not saying time the market. We're saying time the opportunities around what's going on in your financial situation, whether it's a calendar year timing, if it's pre-IPO timing, is it, time horizon to your retirement timing? There's a lot of different timing components that come into play. And that's why I think, we all enjoy planning so much, is it's not just kind of being reactive. It's more being proactive and running alternative scenarios to set reasonable expectations for our clients to understand, what does this look like in this scenario versus this scenario? Because, you guys, the clients, are so busy doing what they do best, right? Being really good at their career, getting, promotions, and spending their time with their family. What we're really good at is doing the analysis and educating our clients on what they can do and how they can do it. And the best part is if they're too busy to do it, well, guess what? We can take care of that for them too. So it's kind of fun being that person that's in our clients' lives and helping them close that gap.
Yeah, Kevin, a quote that you just kind of remind me is, successful people do the things the unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. And, this is one of those things where a successful person is going to ask for help to make sure that they're capitalizing on this as much as they can. The other thing I was going to mention, if you think about it, if you own a mutual fund, inside of that mutual fund, you're going to own individual stocks. Do you think the managers are just holding on for a certain day to sell that stock position? No, they have a disciplined approach on when they're going to unload Meta or Google or Tesla. They know, they have a plan. that's all we're doing is trying to help folks take that same kind of discipline to their own personal planning. So
in closing here, you guys, I looked up a couple fun facts, as sometimes I often do.
oh,
Dad,
great. Nick does this, Kevin. Be careful. Last time we heard about fun facts was allergy season. So
and they were fun. They were fun. Okay, what year do you think the first stock sale to the public was made? So the first ever company to sell shares of their company to the public. What year do you think that was? I won't ask
It's
you.
probably the year that Mike started the business, right?
No,
Yeah.
it was like 1908 or something. No, it was probably before that. You talking about U.S. stock or ever stock?
No, just company, public or private company to
Oh, it was
issue.
a
All right,
long
I'll tell
time.
you. It's 1602. It was a Dutch
Yeah.
East India Company. So
Yeah.
Wow.
kind of crazy. And then this one's really cool. The New York Stock Exchange started under a tree. In 1792, 24 brokers signed an agreement under a buttonwood tree on Wall Street, and that handshake grew into the biggest market in the world. So that's some fun history for you, right under a tree in New York City in 1792.
Hey, Oakwood, we got a tree. That's
Yeah.
True.
ironic.
Yeah,
We
Dad, you
got
might
a
have been
couple
at that meeting.
handshakes underneath that tree. Maybe we're going to grow the biggest institution ever. So,
All right, you guys. Well, you got any last thoughts you want to add, or have you said your piece?
I think the main thing is don't go at this alone. There is help, and Kevin, you blow me away with the knowledge that you have with this stuff, and dude, if I ever was in a public company, I'm sure calling you or Jabron, your partner. But yeah, so
Yeah, I appreciate it.
you,
Yeah.
Kevin. Appreciate you being here.
I would say one thing is like, highlight again off mic is don't go in alone, right? Talking is easy to people. And, a lot of the times you can talk with like us or other people, and consultations are usually complimentary in the beginning. So you at least can kind of talk things over to kind of fill out the situation and see what people's knowledge is. And it's never too late. I've had so many clients that, did their own things and then they came to me and I started auditing their tax return and found out they didn't take advantage of an AMT tax credit and they got an $8,000 bill from 3 years ago. So like the thing is it's never too late, but the opportunity is now to probably start too, because then you can take advantage of certain opportunities before it becomes too late. But I'd say, get on the horse and start looking at these things now and educate yourself so you can feel confident about your financial situation.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that was good, you guys. But like I said, by the time this episode goes public, SpaceX will have IPO'd. So I'm curious to see, how all that's going to
And it
shake
will
out.
have gone up and then gone back down by the time this airs. So.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe Mike Lockwood's ice cream shop will be IPOing soon too.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Money Made Simple. Kevin, thanks for jumping on this one with us.
Thanks,
We're looking
a lot.
forward
Thanks, gentlemen. It's been
to having
fun.
you back. And we'll see all you guys next time. Thanks.